Hello everyone, fellow time travellers. I've elected to interview another fascinating, inspirational person full of information and insight. I'll say right off the top this moment that if I was a character in A.A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh, I'd be Eeyore. I'm an Eeyore-ish person. I'm pessimistic by nature. And fortunately, I'm married to somebody who's optimistic by nature, and she carries me along. But my life is punctuated by moments when I feel desperate need of contact with someone that I hope each time can lift my head up and encourage me to look towards the sunlit uplands. Because left to my own devices, I tend to look towards shadows, and I'm aware that that's not entirely healthy for a person. So, with that in mind, I came up with today's guest, Dr. Ahmad Malik. Now, he and I met. We were introduced by a mutual friend, a dear friend, and we met for the first time in a restaurant in London, and we just clicked. Just one of those ways. We're both Scottish people brought up in the west of Scotland. Ahmed's a bit younger than me, but we had a kind of a bits of background in common, which all obviously oils the wheels of conversation, and we've stayed in touch ever since. Ahmed's had a long story of during the last 4 years, as have we all, but he's had his own road to walk, his own furrow to plough. And we'll certainly get into a bit of that. But really, as I say, as an Eeyore, I know that Ahmad has had time to take a big picture view, a helicopter view of the things that are going on. And he's evolving a better way of looking at health and the mental attitude to how we approach life. So let's get into it. Good morning to you, Dr. Ahmad Malik.
Good morning. No, that's a great introduction. Do you know what I'm just looking at? I'm looking at your beard, actually. I'm looking at your beard and thinking, why did I shave? I actually grew my beard out, and I'm just thinking, I look like a brown Malteser. I just look like a polished brown ball. And I think
you're very smooth. But I was saying to my wife, I might never shave again. Now that I've gone bearded for as long, I may never expose my chin to the elements again.
Wow. So what do you think of this theory? So some people say because I've shaved off all my hair and it's bald up here, I should grow out the beard. You should have one or the other. So you and I are both actually the same because you've grown out your hair and the beard, and maybe it should be one or the other.
Well, do you know, I was clean shaven for all my life. I've had, period, how sometimes you just think, I'll grow a goatee, see what it looks like, experiments that don't last very long. But during the first lockdown, I grew a goatee for something to do. It was one of my little side hobbies.
I can imagine you with the goatee. I think you'd be like an Alfonso or Ricardo, one of these medieval Spanish aristocrats. Yeah, I can picture that.
Nice.
With the collar. The goatee, the collar, the tights.
Maybe a ruff. I could style a ruff. I could wear a ruff, like someone from the Spanish Armada.
That's it. So,
Ahmed, this is exactly what I was after. You see, I knew you would lift my spirits, and you have done already. But just for I'm sure many people will be familiar with your face, like a polished Malteser, as it may or may not be. As you say, but many people in my audience might not have run across you yet. Just give us. I know we've got only a certain amount of time, and your story is a long and convoluted one with many twists and turns. But I thought maybe you could just give us the headlines of exactly what it is that unfolded for you during the last 4 years that would begin to explain why you and I are now chums.
I promise you I will. But first of all, I just want to say I think you're a much better husband than I am. Because last week, my wife, Kat, turned around and said, leave the beard. The only opinion that matters is mine. And I still went ahead and
what did you do?
So I'm going to grow this out. You're going to notice now I'm going to have a bit of a trimmed beard. I'm going to do it.
Good. I'll keep tabs on that.
Yeah, because I'm learning from you as well. You're a much better husband than me. Anyway, so what about me? God, I was very normie life orthopedic surgeon, and yeah, COVID hit just before that. Brexit. I mean, we've just had some weird times. Every single time we say, "God, the world is getting very polarized," it just gets even more polarized. Just when you think it couldn't get any more polarized, and so yeah, COVID came about, and I'm this orthopedic surgeon who's very disillusioned with the NHS. I was in the NHS for over 20 years, and it just didn't make sense to me where we were going, the trajectory, the deterioration, the decline, and it was a lie. It was not about keeping people sick, healthy. It's about just keeping people sick and
Was
dependent.
this and was this before? Were you already thinking like that before the,
Mm.
let's say, the medical interventions came
Oh
trundling along
yeah,
towards us?
yeah. This is like from like 2012 onwards. I'm a consultant, and now when you're a junior doctor, you're just basically the hamster in the hamster wheel. You're trying to beat off the competition. You're trying to get to that prize, which is to be a consultant. It's like, so you don't really pay much attention to anything else, and even through med school, you just go through exam after exam, learn this, learn that. But it's only when, with hindsight, you look back and go, God, med school was really funny. That was a bit weird. We didn't get taught really a lot of important things like nutrition, like diet, like sleep, like how to exercise, or even one lecture on physiotherapy, or what's in a vaccine, or anything about a vaccine, or anything like that. We weren't taught anything about the history of medicine and how we've really done some crazy stuff in the past, like sticking needles up people's brains and scrambling them, or giving them arsenic and mercury for a cold and a flu. Stuff like that. We didn't get taught anything. We got taught, you're amazing, you're the top of society, the cream of society. Things go wrong. We don't know why. Here's a drug, and here's a tablet. Here's an operation, and we just kind of accepted it. But I was questioning, thinking, why did these things happen? Why do people get rheumatoid arthritis? I just got off the phone with someone called Michael Rosen, who's going to be a guest in my podcast, who had scoliosis, and he wants to talk about why he got it, he thinks, and how you can treat it. And it was fascinating because, again, as an orthopedic surgeon, scoliosis is a big thing, straightening the spine. And, you don't get taught, why do you get scoliosis? We never get told why. It's always like, oh, we don't know, or even better, it's your fault, it's in your genes. So the whole medical paradigm is a bit strange, but you don't really question it because you're forced into this little narrow vision of exams, career, hurdle, jump through, blah blah blah. Anyway, so you get to the point where you're a consultant, and now suddenly you got a little bit of breathing space. There is no rat race, there are no more exams, and you're now getting in touch with the managers, and now as head of the department, and you're getting to go to the meetings, and you're listening to the conversations, and it's like Orwellian doublespeak. We will put patients at the center of care, and then the whole meeting is about how we are going to get patients off the waiting list and deny them treatment and care and save money. And I'm like, this is complete inversion of what we're meant to be doing. And it just went on like that. So I got really disillusioned with the NHS. I realized that it wasn't free anymore. It was actually taxpayers' money, and a lot of it. I realized that it's not strapped for cash. It's actually rolling around in cash. It's the ultimate cash cow for corporations. And it's just a vehicle of extracting wealth from us and giving it to big pharma and consultancy firms. And I was really upset because in that process of about 2016, 2017, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. He's dying of cancer. And that's when I had my wake up call. My dad was like, look at you. You're fat. You're overweight. You're hypertensive. You're diabetic, son. You work 6 days a week. You don't know your wife or your kids. What are you doing? I'm a dying man. Sort your shit out. And I was like, wow. Yeah. And, typical Glaswegian, straight talking. And I was like, yeah, what am I doing? God, I am overweight, and I've got fatty liver, and I'm diabetic, and my doctor's telling me to take metformin, and
And you're a
I'm like,
consultant surgeon. You should know better.
right? But the diabetologist himself is overweight, is himself on metformin and eating donuts. What I'm trying to say is people have this idea of doctors being on the pedestal and being the fountain of knowledge and being so smart. We're really quite dumb. And you just need to go to a local hospital and look at the average doctor and nurse. They're overweight. They're not healthy. They look stressed. And I was thinking about this actually. How can I be telling people about how to be fit and healthy when I'm not walking the walk? And then I was like, but I don't know how to, because everything I've been told I'm doing, low fat, minimize meat, and cut out the fat milk and the butter and all that kind of stuff. And I exercise. I'm at the gym and I'm on the treadmill. Why am I like this? What is wrong with me? I'm doing everything they tell me to do. And that's when I think the big realization and shock for me was that actually so much of what we're taught and told, public and the doctors, is wrong. And then actually, when I started turning my health around, and my wife and I lost a ton of weight, and I reversed my diabetes, my hypertension, my fatty liver, my testosterone, which was rock bottom, is now back to normal. I feel stronger now than at any point in my life. If you asked me as a 18-year-old to run 10K cross country, I would have laughed at you. Now I can do it without any bother at all. And after this, if you look, I've got my rash guard on. I'm off to do a jiu-jitsu class. That's why I need to go at 12, because I have to. It's my weekly session with the wife, couples therapy, where we try and strangle each other. I've discovered what it means to be healthy and how it is to be healthy. And you know what the crazy thing is? I'm teaching this to my 5-year-old son. So then you think, well, if I can teach this to my 5-year-old son, we could teach this to all 5-year-olds in the country. And this would ensure that the whole nation would be healthy, strong, fit. Why are they not doing that?
Ahmed, had you you had this Damascene, moment before any of the, what you and I have both kind of come to categorize as the madness of the last, since about whatever 2019, 2020, the madness that seemed to envelop everyone on planet Earth.
Yeah.
So by the time that happened, you had already had I'm overweight, I've got diabetes, I've got a fatty liver, I should be doing something. So you were already on that path.
Yep.
For your own personal reasons before global events began to play.
Yep. 100%. 100%. And then the more I looked into it, the more I saw the corruption and the failings. So I realized that medical school training was actually just indoctrination. I realized that Big Pharma had this incredibly unhealthy influence on the medical profession. I've been involved in research and I've seen it firsthand. And at the time, I thought it was just localized. Professors, look, let's just be honest, they were just lying about figures. So for example, I would do a telephone call to patients who'd had surgery, and I would score them based on the answers. So you got a score out of 100. And if you were 18 above, that meant you're a good result, excellent result. And if it was 70 and above, it was a good result. And, it goes down and down and down. And when I told the professor the results of this study and how they weren't that great, and I left and moved on to another job, I then was surprised when I saw the paper was published without my name on it. And what they had done was, they had just moved the score chart so that now instead of being 18 above to get excellent, you just needed to be 16 above to get excellent, and so on and so on. So yes, the scores were still the same, but now the category was shifted. And suddenly they were like, oh, this operation has excellent 5-year results. And my name was not on the paper.
So not terribly unlike the way in which the ONS have recently applied new maths to how they calculate excess deaths. And lo and behold, it turns out, there's nothing to worry about there at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of creative algorithmic manipulation of numbers.
Yeah, I call it statistical jugglery. It's just, and they just, and sleight of hand and this and that. And, statistics is a great tool to deceive and misinform. It's a very powerful tool, but along with things like modeling, if you put garbage in, you get garbage out. So, and there was not just that one instance. I saw how Big Pharma and companies were influencing people, funding trips abroad. It goes on and on. And then I also saw how, people would make a name for themselves promoting a certain procedure or drug or intervention. Their whole existence, was based on that. And a lot of people build this idea of research, publications, and being an authority figure so they can get private practice. So people come to them for their medical reports. So they're the expert witness, and or people seek them out and they charge a fortune. So a lot of it is driven by money, ego, reputation. And big pharma influences now medical journals, meetings, associations, and governments now. The corruption is quite massive, and I think people don't really understand. But I saw that. I saw that. And what I was really upset about was the fact that I had managers telling me how to practice. So one of the things that I remember as a junior doctor was one of my professors who was almost close to retirement saying, Ahmed, the managers, be wary of the managers. They're trying to take away our autonomy. We are surgeons. We are not just technicians, Ahmed. We decide, we think, we plan, and never let anyone take that away from you. Otherwise, they will make you little monkey technicians. Anyone can operate. You can train a monkey to do an operation. We aren't monkeys. We're surgeons because we think. And I'll never forget that conversation. All right. At the Glasgow Western Infirmary. But that's exactly what happens. The managers and the guidelines and the protocols have made all doctors, not just surgeons, into little monkey technicians. And they just follow the orders. They follow the protocols. I had this GP, this retired GP, Rachel, tell me, at a meeting where I was giving a talk, you're absolutely right, Ahmed. I've just retired. And she goes, when a patient is ready to come into my room, I get a little pop-up on my window just before I call the patient in. And the pop-up comes up, this patient is not on statins. Make sure they're prescribed on statins. Pop-up again. Oh, make sure this patient's on a proton pump inhibitor. Pop-up. Make sure this patient's on an ACE inhibitor. And she goes, I don't even know why this patient's coming in to see me, but I have to make sure by the time they leave, they're on these drugs. And if I don't give them these drugs, then I'm not hitting my targets. If I'm not hitting my targets, the practice doesn't make money. My partners call me up and my partners say, why are you not prescribing these drugs? Why are you not hitting the targets? We're all losing money as a practice because of you. So there's pressure, peer pressure to comply and just give the goddamn tablet. I mean, what the hell? Just a tablet. And if you don't, the next step is you start getting referred for investigations. Like, your practice is a bit unusual. You're not doing what everybody else is doing, Rachel. You're not prescribing it. You're missing the diagnosis. Do you need some retraining? So you kind of get herded and funneled into just doing what everyone else is doing. And why are they going on statins? I mean, that's a complete nonsense. Cholesterol is life. It's the brick of life, your building block of your body. But you know what? Get rid of cholesterol. And what people don't realize also is cholesterol is it is literally the building block. So it then goes into lots of other things, hormones, sex hormones, cell membranes, you name it. So when you block that that statin thing, it blocks everything downstream, which is why you then get the plethora of side effects and complications. And so the whole paradigm of, cholesterol is bad is just complete nonsense. It's garbage. It's not science. But big pharma and the medical profession has sold it to you and everyone, and we've all been brainwashed into thinking that's the right thing. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. You got PPIs and antidepressants and vaccines and God knows what else.
Just to excavate a little into some of the background or the history of what you're saying, what effect was all of this having on you? I mean, let me assure you, I will get away from my Eeyorish tendencies. But first of all, I think I know because I have spoken and confided in one another, and I just because of what you are and who you are, a consultant surgeon, which, as you say, is a kind of figure that people definitely hold in high regard, and as a pillar of society and of the community. But I'm very interested to know what your awakening and your realizations that you're describing. What was that doing to you in your life?
Okay, I'm going to be honest, and it sounds terrible when I hear it, but this little brown Malteser was just worried about himself and his family and just staying happy. I wasn't happy in the NHS. I found it very stressful. All the targets, the lack of autonomy, and I just wanted to be happy. I wanted to be healthy. So I left the NHS so I could get control back and treat patients the way I would treat my family. And that's all I cared about. I wanted to treat patients like my family. And I loved my job. I loved fixing ankle fractures and helping people. But actually, as I got healthier myself, my practice changed. So I found that actually I could avoid surgery in so many cases. I was only operating on 5% of patients in the last few years because actually now instead of saying, "Oh, so tell me about your ankle pain," I'd start off with, "Tell me about your sleep. Do you have much stress in your life? What's your diet like? What's your nutrition like? And then tell me about your ankle." And I realized that everything was linked. Everything was linked. Because guess what? If you have chronic sleep deprivation and poor sleep, you don't heal, you don't recover, you have higher pain. It just goes on and on and on. And, we've all got aches and pains and bits of degeneration, but why is it some people do just fine with that degeneration and some people don't? And I've been through my fair share. I've had 2 spinal surgeries, emergency spinal surgeries, I've had wrist operations. I've lived with chronic pain for 10 years. I've been on opioids. I know the whole shebang. So anyway, I started treating patients like how I recovered, and I saw my patients were getting really well, doing well. And there's no bigger buzz, Neil. When a patient texts you, and I'm still getting them now, although it's now tinted with a bit of sadness, when I get a message saying, "Oh, Ahmed, it says years since you operated on me, and look at me, I just ran this race and I got this medal, and thank you so much, and I love you so much, I'll never forget you, and I'll always be grateful to you." Waking up to that kind of message, you feel like a superhero. It's just amazing. So I left and went private, and I was really happy because I was now working 2.5, 3 days a week. I was earning enough to have a comfortable life, not a rich life, but a comfortable one. My kids go to state school. We have secondhand cars. We don't have a lavish lifestyle, small cottage. And I was happy with that. And I realized that's the pursuit of happiness, is being content and not wanting more and more. Because all my colleagues want the big houses and the big cars and the private schools and the flash holidays. I mean, last year someone told me they went to the Maldives and spent £25,000 on a holiday, and I almost choked to death. I was like, "What?" But if you're going to have that lifestyle, you need to generate the work, and you need to convert the patients, and then the stress that comes with that. So for me, I was really happy. I was not an activist. I did not want to be in the public eye. I didn't want to be going saving the world. I just wanted to do what I could do, which is treat patients the way I would treat my family. And then we went into COVID.
And the world turned on its axis, or moved on its axis.
Yeah.
And what was it that you said? What was the door that you opened one day that changed the way your profession perceived and treated you? What did you do? How did you cause it to change?
I think it goes back to when I was actually a consultant. I wasn't happy. I went in there to get rid of the waiting list, and within a few months, one of the senior consultants came up to me in my office, shut the door, said, "Ahmed, what are you doing?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Ahmed, you're working crazy. You're doing these parallel lists. Do you know what parallel list is?" No? Okay. So, normally surgeons go into an operating theater. The anesthetist spends anywhere from half an hour to an hour anesthetizing the patient, and that's all down to how good the anesthetist is. A lot of them are not very good. Can't find the cannula and the blood vessel, stressed, faffing around. People don't realize. The grade makes a huge difference, the expertise of someone. So you could, if they're doing a spinal or a block, they could be spending ages because they're not very good. They're technically not very good. So you, as a surgeon, you could be waiting an hour for the patient to just simply come into the operating theater from the anesthetic room. Then when they get into the operating theater, you have to prepare the patient, clean them, drape them, and start the operation. And again, if you're not careful, that could take another half an hour. The operation itself is only maybe half an hour to an hour. And then you close up, and then they have to clean the theater, and that takes another half an hour to an hour, depending on who's doing it. Then you get them to send for the patient, depending on the porter and how fast they're walking. That could take God knows how long. And then the whole thing starts all over again. So the downtime as a surgeon is massive. And a lot of the doctors will go to the coffee room, and the doctors, will do their private practice, correspondence, letters, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't. What I came up with was, look, when I start closing the wound, my junior can take over, and I'm going to go next door to the other theater where the anesthetist has taken an hour to get the patient to sleep and the patient's now ready. I will walk in, do the operation. And while I'm doing that, they're getting my patient out, cleaning the theater, bringing in the next one. And by the time I finish the second operation, I can walk back into the first theater and the patient's ready for me. And so I would go backwards and forwards. I had two anesthetists, two theater teams, and I was churning out the work. 10, 12 operations in a day. And the waiting list. But then my colleague came in and went, "What are you doing?" I went, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, why are you working so hard?" I was like, "I'm getting rid of the waiting list." He went, "No, Ahmad, you're doing this all wrong. You're doing this all back to front." I was like, what are you talking about? Like, you're gonna overwork yourself. You're gonna just burn out. Look, you keep a waiting list so you can have leverage over the managers, and you build up enough waiting lists, and then people will come to you in the private sector, and those that can't pay for you, the managers will send to the private hospitals and pay you to operate on them over there. Everyone's happy. You're just disrupting the way things are done. And you're making us all look bad because we're not doing what you're doing. And I was like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Is this how it works? And I could say much more, but I don't want to. It gets quite dark. I don't want you to get in a dark mood.
No, and you have, one way or another, you are not in that world anymore. You know, that whole, you know, your evolution has taken you from the world of consultant surgeon to a completely different place.
Yep. I don't think. I mean, look, I definitely jumped before I was pushed. There were obviously the world around me was closing in. But I think what it was is you cannot be in the system while criticizing it and exposing all the flaws and lies. The people in that system will not tolerate it because you're casting them in a bad light. So sooner or later, you're going to have to either exit or be pushed out. So that's what happened. So yeah, I'm very upset with my medical profession and colleagues because going back to the last few crazy years, I think we've seen how medical ethics have been completely demolished. But the reality is, it wasn't the last few years that did it. All the last few years did, Neil, was expose what was already there. People today are not really getting informed consent. People today don't have bodily autonomy. People today are being misled by doctors who don't actually say the oath. I never said the Hippocratic Oath. I never went through university and had to say that. And this whole premise of first do no harm is complete nonsense. It's nonsensical. You know, I'll read it out to you. Let me just minimize this window. So this is a clip of what I was saying on the James Delling podcast, and one of my listeners printed it out and did a meme. So when they being the doctors, when they say first do no harm, what they actually mean is do no harm to my license, do no harm to my income, I better do no harm to my reputation. Oh God, no. Do no harm to my standing in the community. Do no harm to my career. Do no harm to my mistress. Do no harm to my holidays. Do no harm to my kids' private schooling. And maybe then, if it comes down to it, do no harm to my patients. But only if I'm sticking to the guidelines. That's what's the reality of the situation we live in today.
Which, you know, I mean, as a consumer of that product, which is the NHS, it's harrowing to listen to. I mean, obviously, over the last few years, via conversations with yourself and others, I've more than had the I've more than had the curtain drawn back. I mean, you know, what you're saying now is I've heard some of this, you know, from you and from others. I'm well aware. But what I want to get to is, you know, you mentioned earlier that you had already evolved a situation where you were only actually surgically you were only operating on 5%. So that 95% of the people that you were helping in ways that were non-surgical. And what I'm interested in is, clearly now, because of where you find yourself and the circumstances in which you have put yourself, because as you say, you jumped or walked rather than be wait to be pushed and so on. You've evolved that 95% means of helping people, healing people, or making people healthy in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the bright light towards which I would like to walk.
100%.
What is that holism that you have understood and that you're now offering?
Yeah, 100%. Let's do that. And I've got a book in my head that I need to write and get published, and it's gonna happen. Doc Malik's Simple Guide to Good Health. And if anyone doubts me just about what I'm saying, just quickly let me touch on this. Neil, how many doctors do you think are in the UK registered with the GMC, roughly?
Do you mean general practitioners, or do you mean everyone
No.
who holds some sort of license to?
Every doctor who's got a license.
I would imagine tens of thousands.
Something like 370,000. Now, with 370,000 people,
370,000. Wow.
Just Google it. Google how many people are registered with the GMC. I mean, some might not be working, some might be in pharma, some might be this, some might that. But anyway, something like 370,000. It's quite a lot. Would you say it's a lot?
That sounds like, yes, that's like an order of magnitude up from what I was expecting would be the answer. I've never contemplated that question before.
Yeah, well, if you imagine like 300, let's make it 350,000, right? Imagine you've got 350,000 doctors. You'd imagine there'd be quite a wide variety of thoughts, opinions, and beliefs in that group, yes?
Yes.
Quite
Yes,
significant.
definitely.
Even if there's a minority, that minority view would still be probably in the tens of thousands.
Yes, I would expect to hear a range of opinions about how things ought to be.
Right. So now think about how many doctors do you know in the UK who have spoken against the official government narrative regarding the last few years?
Well,
And
I'm in a very, very almost unique situation. I mean, as you know, I take part in spaces on social media, Twitter spaces and so on, which specifically attract
yeah,
contrary, dissenting voices. So I'm
we're talking
hearing
about
from
10.
an absurd.
I know, but
yeah,
we're talking
even
about
at that, as I say, literally a handful of people, which will be many more dissenting voices than the vast majority of people have heard.
Yeah, so we're talking about in the UK only, UK doctors. We're talking about less than 10, somewhere between 5 and 10.
Oh yeah,
who are going against
yes.
the official government narrative and speaking publicly. Now, with the whole laws of probability, that's impossible. You cannot have that small a number of people disagreeing out of 350,000, 370,000 people. That means that there is a sizable chunk of people who also agree with what we are saying, but are not saying it. Then that begs the question, why are they not saying it? And I'll tell you why. Because of that first do no harm. They're too scared to say something because they know what will happen to them. They will either get referred to the GMC, struck off, or lose their job or their practicing privileges like moi. So to preserve their income and their career, they have chosen to stay quiet and ignore the central tenet of medical ethics, which is to do first do no harm. So the next time you go and see a doctor in A&E or in the GP practice or the minor injuries unit, how in full confidence do you know when they are advising you or your child or your parent about a certain course of action, they're actually recommending what's in your best interest and not actually what's in their best interest, which will protect their license and their income? Because it could be that what is in your best interest will get them into trouble. And if it gets them into trouble, then they're not going to be happy. So they might say, well, I'll just go along and do as I'm told because the guidelines tell me to. And the reality is, if you get sick or die, through a protocol or a guideline, no doctor will get pulled up for that. The doctor will be protected. But the moment a doctor does something for you and actually something happens to you and it was outside the guideline, the whole weight of the machinery will come down on that doctor and punish them and say, that's because of you, that's your fault, and make an example of you. So this is terrifying where we are right now. And it doesn't matter if you're private or NHS, it's the same thing. Anyway, let's go back to health then. So the simple things that, I would say is when someone dangles to you a device or supplements or some expensive modality, run the other direction. So I'm not selling anything. I'm not selling any machines, any treatments, or any supplements. Yes, there are things that can help you, and I take supplements, but you don't supplement yourself out of bad health. Just like you don't comply out of tyranny. I just had to get that in. So
That's very
basically,
good,
so basically, the things that I'm telling you are free. They're free. They're cheap. They're simple, but they do take personal responsibility and sometimes sacrifice and effort. And the problem is that human beings have become lazy and they want a quick fix, and they've abdicated their personal responsibility to authorities that care not about their health. And so that's where we need to change as a culture. We need to stop going for the easy route. We need to choose the harder route, the harder path, because that's where the real fruit lie. So anyway, I would say first of all, sleep. So underestimated the power of sleep. But we talk about beauty sleep, for example. If you just look at night shift workers, people who do night shifts live a good 10 years less than people who don't do night shifts. They have a much higher rate of cardiovascular disease, angina, heart attacks, strokes, and a much higher incidence of cancer. So just think about that. Something is happening to these people when they're doing night shifts. They're dying quicker and they're sicker. And it's not just about life expectancy. You could live to 80, but you could spend 15 years, incontinent, doubly incontinent in a nursing home, not knowing who you are, where you are. Do you really want to live 15 years like that? So I think people need to understand that it's not just about, longevity. It's about the quality of life that you have. So sleep deprivation is a major problem, and it's essentially because it's during sleep that you actually heal, recover, repair, and build. It's not when you're in the gym lifting those weights that you're going to be building muscle
Ahmed,
mass.
I am not good at sleep. Do you know?
Okay.
I'm seeking some professional help. When I was younger, but actually before I had children, I was great at sleeping. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when I've had jobs in my pre-child existence, which were stressful for whatever reason, but I was always able to come home, and if I'd had a really bad day for whatever reason, my refuge was sleep. Whatever stress I was experiencing did not keep me awake. Sometimes I would come in and I would think, I'm just going to my bed, and I would get 10 hours of sleep. I was uninterrupted sleep. I was really well. It worked for me. Obviously, I've got 3 children. They're grown up now, largely. But ever since the first of them, that classic, it disrupts your sleep, obviously, because you're getting up through the night with an infant and so on and so on. And I never got it back. One way and another, my ability to sleep was that had been deleted. And I'm very aware. I know this. I know that it's a third of your life should be spent asleep, and it's where your soul and your essence goes to recover and to process and to repair. I'm well aware of all of that, but I am not good at it. And I've tried it. I stay away from the light of computers. I don't drink caffeinated drinks late in the day and so on and so on. I'm not good at it, and it worries me because I know how important sleep is.
Well, stop worrying about it, because that's not going to help either. Worry creates stress, cortisol dampens everything. But you're right, sleep is so important. And, it's not just all the things we just touched upon. It's a much deeper scientific level. You've got the circadian rhythm. Every cell in your body has a clock, and it, at different times, the clock goes ding, and then hormones are released. Certain hormones go up, certain hormones go down. If you don't sleep, then your insulin levels go up, then you put on weight. So just not sleeping will put weight on, make you insulin resistant. It will lower your testosterone. It will lower your muscle mass, your recovery, regeneration. So 100%. But I mean, why your sleep is not right. I mean, we could talk about this for hours. I mean, my simple thing I would say is a lot of people struggle. I struggle, Neil. I'm not going to lie. It's a daily battle for me. I wake up probably once a night because I need to go for a wee wee. And I need to sort that out. But things like going to sleep early, is really important. But waking up early is also equally important. The habit of snoozing and hitting the alarm. You should get up at 6 every morning and go straight out and watch the sunrise, because that's when your circadian rhythm clock is reset, and that's really important. Spend
Really?
as much
So the early risers statistically do better than whatever
much
night
better,
owls or so on.
much better. So get that fresh sun dawn light in your eyes. Get some exercise done in the morning. Do some grounding. And grounding's not some woo-woo thing. You actually get electrons through the earth, charging your system. It helps generate something called easy water, which is structured water, which is another fascinating conversation. It's called the fourth phase of water. Absolutely incredible. Not
I've never
science.
heard of this. I don't
Woo-woo.
know anything. You're saying this for the first time. I've never heard those words uttered before.
Yeah, we'll look into Gerald Pollack's work. It's absolutely fantastic. So water has memory. Water is a battery. Water is incredible. When I slice a patient open now, I've done it for years. We're 70% water. Just think about it, 70% water. We're meant to be bags of water, right? So if I cut you open, you'd expect water to just gush out. Doesn't happen. Never happens. Water in the body is actually almost like a gel. Why? Why is that? How is that? How is that water structured that way? It's absolutely fascinating. Anyway, it needs electrons to make the easy water, and that's why grounding works. And there's a lot of other things that help with that. It's all on my podcast. So basically, what I'm trying to say is sleep is very important. So wake up early, go to sleep early, and then, if you keep doing that and don't have midday naps, you're going to be tired by third, fourth day and want to crawl into bed. Minimize the screen time, not just during the evening, but during the day. And, the moment it starts to get a bit dark, 6, 7 o'clock, put your blue blocker glasses on, dim the lights. Definitely stop watching screens like a good hour before you go to bed. Pick up a book, do some meditation, do some relaxation work, have sex. And definitely avoid eating 3 hours before you go to bed. Because when you eat, a lot of people don't understand that it's actually turning all the machinery on. You're turning all the knobs, pulling all the levers, pressing all the buttons, and the machinery's getting back up and running and increasing the blood flow to the stomach, and then drawing the nutrients out and taking to the liver, and the liver's a factory. And just imagine all the smoke's coming out the pipe. No, you don't. You don't want to be doing. You want to be turning everything off, disengaging. So, how many people do you know who eat late at night? A ton. They come home tired, and then they get their food out, and what are they eating? They're eating garbage, processed, microwaved, whatever. And you're giving the wrong signals to your body. You're just firing everything up. When we went out for that meal, it was late at night. Late at night. I don't do that.
Yeah, it was dark o'clock in Londonshire.
Yeah, I don't do that. Don't do that. It's bad for you. So many of these dinners I go to, and I just drink sparkling water. People look at me like, and it's not just the fact that I fast and eat one meal a day now. It's just too late. It's too late. It just ruins me, wrecks me. And the funny thing is, when you get to a healthy state, you don't need much to feel awful. But when you're feel awful, you're always feeling awful. Another little thing won't make you feel worse. And that's why when you start getting healthy and there's little incremental gains, it can be quite motivating, because you're like, oh, wow, I feel so much better now. I'm going to try, changing a little bit of my practice here and a little bit of practice in my here. I mean, we don't have time in this podcast, but I think the key thing is incremental gain. So very, very quickly, the things you want to optimize is your sleep, your diet, your nutrition, your fasting, your exercise, love in your life, nature in your life, connections, minimize stress, have clean water, healthy water, not tap water, stuff like that. And we can go into the details another day.
Something you said there, I just need to echo it. Love in your life. I think one of the most pernicious elements in modern Western life is the way in which being with someone you love and someone who loves you is so undervalued. We don't talk about it. I'm married to Trudy. I've known Trudy most of my life, and she is so integral to my well-being. She makes me
Yeah.
better, whatever you mean by better. Health, improved as a whatever. She makes me a better person, and we don't hear enough about that. There's this sort of background noise of people thinking that multiple partners and or delaying being together with someone is there in the sort of mood music of our lives. And anyway, I could go on and on.
Lovely. Beautiful. I love the fact you're a big romantic. Yeah, great. Man, 100%. So, love for me is also with that other person just feeling really complete. And I have
Huh.
that, and I'm very lucky. And I feel really sad because maybe it's just my exposure, but having met hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people through my work, I would say about 80% of couples are very dysfunctional. Are marriages or relationships of convenience, and they don't really have love, and it makes me sad. It makes me very sad. And when I hear people say, "I fell out of love," or "we grew apart," I think that didn't have to happen. That could have been avoided. Have you ever come across love languages, by the way?
No.
Can we talk about it for a second?
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
Anyone who knows me knows I could talk for a while. Mate, us Glaswegians, we can blather. Anyway, so basically, love, I didn't know this until, only a few years back. Love is not something you just think, oh, I love you and you love me, and it's that simple. There's actually a language to love. And this great guy, whose name I've just forgotten, typical, broke it down into 5 different broad themes, 5 languages of love. And most people have 1 or 2 the languages that they recognize. So they like to receive love in this manner. Okay. Also, when you like to receive love in this manner, the default is you like to give love back in that manner to other people. But that's a pitfall people make, because just because you like love being given to you in a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that the love that someone else is out there that you're giving back to is the way they want it. And that's where relationships get into trouble. You need to understand your partner's love languages, because you may have different ones. And to be honest, the likelihood is that you do, because opposites attract. So I'll give you an example. The main love languages are acts of service. So if you empty the dishwasher or cook a meal or clean up around the house or go out shopping, that's an act of service for someone else, potentially. If you take their clothes to dry cleaning. If you words of affirmation. So if you're constantly messaging throughout the day or talking to each other, or even when you see them in the evening and say, I love you, baby, you're the best husband I could ever ask for. I love you so much. By the way, your hair is gorgeous. I'm so lucky to have you. Just saying nice things to you make you feel special and loved. Third one, gifts. Hey, Neil, I love you so much. Here's a, aftershave I want to give you. You're like, oh my God, I feel so loved. Or a box of flowers or a box of chocolates or a bunch of flowers. So that's that. And then there's quality time. So Neil, when I come and see you, I want to spend time with you, buddy. I want to spend some quality time chatting, talking, just doing shit together. And then the last one is physical touch. And it's not actually sex. It's about holding hands, sitting next to each other, stroking someone's hair, or my bald head, or whatever. So I'll give an example. My wife's languages of love, predominantly, the big one right up there at the top, was acts of service. So me cooking a meal for her, tidying up around the house, doing things with the kids, because I went part-time, so I was helping with the kids and everything, would make her feel loved up. And she did. If I sat at home with my feet up and she comes home and goes, so what's for food? I'm like, I don't know. What are you going to cook? That would not make her feel loved up. So her language of love was acts of service, me doing things for her, which I was very naturally very good at. Her other language of love was physical touch. And one of the things my wife and I always do and have done for a very long time is, whenever we spend a little bit of time watching TV, before we start, we light a fire, we chat about the kids and work, and we massage each other. She sits in front of me, I do her shoulders, her head. Then I sit in front of her, and then she does me, or then we do the feet sometimes, or the hands, and it's very relaxing. It's very tactile. It's very loving. It's a great thing we do together. So those were her two love languages: physical touch and acts of service. Now, what did she want to do to love me?
I love how you said earlier that you weren't a good husband because you shaved, and then you just list this behaviour. I would say on the contrary, Ahmed, I think you sound like a very attentive and in the moment kind of a person. Certainly, I think I knew you were being self-deprecating. However, I would say you're paying attention.
I am. I'll come to that in a second. So then, but the problem is with the whole lockdown and everything, there's a bit of a strain in our marriage, and I realized this is before I understood love languages. The problem was, my wife was giving me love the way she wanted to be received, and that was a mistake because my love language is not acts of service. If I wanted the house cleaned, I'd get a maid. If I wanted food, I cook it myself. I'm very self-sufficient. I'm very independent. I'm not a typical man who just sits with his feet up and clicks fingers. And I'm very hands-on. I'm very domesticated, and I like it like that. I love that. So I don't want my wife to do acts of service for me. It means nothing. Physical touch was great, but it wasn't enough. My main language of love is actually quality time. And one of the things my wife fell into, unfortunately, was an addiction. She was addicted to Pokemon. She got into this stupid game. Someone mentioned to her, she used to watch Pokemon as a kid, the cartoon. And when the game came out, someone told her about it, some friend. I know, I'm being serious. She became addicted to the game Pokemon. She's on her phone the whole time. She's on the toilet for hours. I'm like, what are you doing? She's on Pokemon. We go to the park with the kids, and I'm pushing the swing, and I'm, where's my wife gone? And she's up there with her Pokemon trying to slay some monster. And it was quite bad. Quality time was not quality time with her. Her idea of then quality time was watch
Your
TV.
Your relationship was being undermined by Pokemon.
Yeah. No, I mean it. Seriously. And amongst other things, so like WhatsApp groups at work, whenever it was on her phone, she was always on her phone, on Facebook or this and that. I was not having quality time with her. I wasn't chatting to her, talking to her. I was starting to get quite lonely. She was there, but not there. And that's my main language of love, quality time. And when you do not get that love, you feel unloved. And then you feel resentment. Then you feel anger. And then you start to grow apart. That person doesn't love me. Why should I bother doing anything for them? I don't love them back. So imagine like you're walking down a path together in the woods, right? You're holding hands. Great. You're walking together. You know where you're going. You're coming back. Same destination together. But imagine you're not holding hands. Imagine you got headphones on. You're listening to music. Imagine every step you take 1 millimeter apart. How many steps you take in a day? 10,000? That's 10,000 millimeters apart. How many days in a year? And then suddenly, do you see how suddenly you've grown apart? And you're like, hey. Where is my partner? Where are they? Oh my God, they're right over there. We grew apart. We fell out of love. And then to get that course correction, sometimes it's so violent, it's not possible. Sometimes it's just like, God, you're too far away now. You're miles away. Do you know what? I see someone else here now. Bye-bye. And you go have an affair, you go wherever, blah, blah, blah. So comes back to what you said, you're very attentive. Like when it comes to relationships, if you aren't working at it every single day, it ain't working. The moment you take your other half for granted, bingo, it's gone. Every day you should treat your other half as if it's your first ever date. The butterflies in your stomach, the excitement of seeing them, yearning for their presence, looking forward to them, but not in a weird way, not in a weird now jealous way. I encourage my wife to go out with her friends and have dinner and do things with them. And She likes me to go out, like tonight, early evening, I'm meeting a friend for a curry. Like, it's good to spend time away, but you should be excited about being together, and you should be working hard at it.
Did you just? I'm just watching the clock for us both. I'm just watching that. I know that you have you've got to go and uh, have your jiu-jitsu session. But did all of this that you're talking about here, is it? This is what I'm saying is, if the disruption of the last 4 years,
Yeah.
and specifically really what happened in the first sort of 18 months, 2 years of that period, was it that set you off in so many ways in this voyage of discovery about yourself and about your relationship and all the rest of it, such that you might actually be able to say that in some ways you're glad it happened. And I'll go first on that because I think, although in many ways if I could press a button and make the COVID debacle not have happened, I'd be severely tempted to press that button and have the COVID debacle not have happened to the world. But in reality, because of the understanding that I've acquired and the deepening of the way in which Trudy and I understand each other, which we were already great, but that has been even further intensified. And the people that I shed, the people that parted company with me because they didn't like what I was thinking and saying, but the people that have come into that vacant space, including you, sometimes when I do an account of it all, I think, this was for my betterment.
Mate, 100%.
I'm more aware, paying more attention, and thinking more deeply about important things than I did in the first half century of my life.
Yeah, never have regrets, mate. I've been molested as a kid, bullied as a child. I've been through a painful, abusive marriage. I've been paralyzed after a car accident. I've had emergency surgeries. I've been bullied and harassed at work. I've been hounded out of my profession, bullied and harassed by my private hospitals. I went through the whole COVID debacle. I've been called so many names and things. I don't care. I wouldn't take any of that back. I'd go through it all over again because I am who I am today because of all these experiences, and they've shaped me into the person that I am right now. And I quite like who I am right now. And I think it's always about taking the negatives in your life, and we all have them, and embracing them and turning what is adversity and negativity into positivity. That's our job. And there will always be shit in the world. And what I always say to people, and this is a good place to end, imagine you're in a hurdle race. There's hurdles every kind of like 10, 20 meters. There's a nice stretch in the middle, and you get your legs stretched out, and then you have to go over the hurdle. Sometimes you trip over it and you stumble, and then you have to pick yourself up and keep running. And you have to keep going. Now, the only time there aren't any hurdles left is when you're no longer on the track. What I'm trying to say is life is that hurdle race, that track. It's just an inevitability. Enjoy the sweet moments in between. Jump over the hurdles, pick yourself up, keep going. The only time we're never going to have these problems is when we're dead. It's like, just accept it. Embrace it.
Ahmed, I knew, as I said, I knew that you were going to lift me up. I knew you were going to lift my spirit because there is something about you, and it's clearly you're a product of everything that has made you, and whatever it is, all that you just listed, has made you a bright, positive force. And I'm delighted that our paths crossed when they did. And as I also mean it, I want you to come back and talk to me and my audience regularly because, what you're prescribing as a healer is, money can't buy it. So, Ahmad Malik.
My pleasure.
Former consultant surgeon, but really now a proper healer. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.